Welcome back, restorers and explorers. We have another beautiful little book review for you today. This is one that I read a little while ago, and I have been just itching to talk about it and get a video out here on it. The Mushroom at the End of the World. On the Possibility of Life in Capitalist Ruins. Anna Lowenhaupt Tsing. So Anna here does a wonderful job of blending in ecology with economics. And it's a really interesting read. It's the entire book specifically is about matsutake trade, which is a mushroom that grows in very exclusive places. And the markets that erupt and thrive around this this individual mushroom, this individual species, and I think it's just pretty relative to our current situation here as we go into a very bleak Monday morning for the stock market and its failings. I think that this is I thought it'd be a good time to do one of these book reviews on this specific book. Fantastic stuff, guys. As you know, we'll get right into it here. I'm going to go ahead and read the introduction here so you guys can get a little brief window into the beauty of the mycelial world, or at least Anna's interpretation of it. Ever since the Enlightenment, Western philosophers have shown us that nature is grand and universal, but also passive and mechanical. Nature was a backdrop and a resource for the moral intentionality of man, which could tame and master nature. It was left, including non-Western and non-civilized storytellers, to remind us of the lively activities of all beings, humans and not human. Several things have happened to undermine this division of labor. First of all, taming and mastering has made such a mess that it is unclear whether life on Earth can continue. Second, interspecies entanglements that once seemed to be stuff full of fables are now materials for serious discussion among biologists and ecologists who show how life requires the interplay of many kinds of beings. Humans cannot survive by stomping on all the others. Third, women and men from around the world have clamored to be included into this status once given to man. Our righteous presence undermines the moral intentionality of man's Christian masculinity, which separated man from nature. The time has come for new ways of telling true stories behind civilization's first principles. Without man and nature, all creatures can come back to life, and men and women can express themselves without strictness of imagined rationality, no longer regulated to whispers in the night. Such stories might be simultaneously true and fabulous. How else can we account for the fact that anything is alive in the mess that we have made? Following a mushroom, this book offers such true stories. Unlike most scholarly books, what follows is a riot of short chapters. I wanted them to be like flushes of mushrooms that come up after a rain, and an over-the-top bounty, a temptation to explore, and always too many. The chapters build on an open-ended assemblage, not logical machine. They gesture to the so much more out there. They tangle with and interrupt each other, mimicking the patchiness of the world, and I'm trying to describe it. Adding another thread, the photographs tell a story alongside the text, but do not illustrate it directly. I use images to present the spirit of my argument rather than the scenes I discuss. Imagine first nature to mean ecological relations, including humans, and second nature to refer to capitalist transformations of the environment. This usage, not the same as popular versions, derives from William Cronon's Nature's Metropolis. My book then offers a third nature, that is, what manages to live despite of capitalism. To even notice third nature, we must evade assumptions that the future is that singular direction ahead. Like virtual particles in a quantum field, multiple futures pop up in and out of possibility. Third nature emerges within such temporal polyphony. Yet progress stories have blinded us. To know a world without them, this book sketches open-minded assemblages of entangled ways of life, and these coalesce into coordination across many kinds of temporal rhythms. My experiment and form and my argument follow each other. The book is based on fieldwork conducted during the matsutake seasons between 2004 and 2011 in the United States, Japan, Canada, China, and Finland, as well as interviews with scientists, foresters, matsutake traders there, as well as in Denmark, Sweden, and Turkey. Perhaps my own matsutake trail is not yet over. Matsutake is in places as far afield as Morocco, Korea, and Bhutan beckon. My hope is that readers will experience some of the mushroom fever with me in the chapters to come. So, yeah, really, really cool stuff on this one. You want to talk about really going in. I don't think that there's anybody out there that knows more about the matsutake market than Miss Tsing. And definitely did her due diligence on this book. She basically uses it like as a metaphor of how resilient nature actually is, and how resilient we are, and how we need to really identify with the resilience of mushrooms, and specifically this matsutake that can thrive in even the most of destroyed ecosystems. The mushroom's ability and the so-called ruins. It challenges traditional notions of ecological degradation and shows us how nature can adapt and even benefit from human-induced changes. So she makes pretty good analogies that, not all of the mistakes that we are making are necessarily mistakes. She definitely doesn't advocate for, communism in this book. That's not something that's going on here. But she also is not railing against capitalism the entire time either. She makes pretty good analogies in that capitalism is not great, and there's better options out there. But at the same time, she tries to make the best out of the situation that capitalism has put us in, where we are on the brink of ecological nightmarish times. For us and other species. So it really is interesting how this mushroom really is insane, and it became this insane commodity for a certain period of time. And it's sold in very high-end markets in Japan, the U.S., and elsewhere. And she dives into the supply chain and the amount of labor involved, and the little human and economic networks that have sprouted up around this specific mushroom. And she's out there, boots on the ground, camping out weeks at a time on these matsutake hunts, and goes into how the trading in these little markets actually goes down, and how these bundles of mushrooms after being harvested are sold, and how it makes its way all the way out across the world and gets shipped. It's super fascinating. You guys got to get into it. If you like mushrooms, or if you like an analysis on ecological stuff, it's great. It offers a broader philosophical reflection of what it means to find hope and possibility in the midst of environmental and economic collapse. It suggests that the matsutake mushroom survival and adaptability provides the best metaphor for finding our ways to live and thrive within and beyond the constraints of capitalist systems. So, it's one of those things where we're at that point in human progression of civilization where I think, and she brings up a lot of great arguments in here, that we can push past capitalism, or we can kind of devolve, which is kind of what I believe is more likely to happen. And I hate being a pessimist, but we're kind of already entering into what Yanis Varoufakis says is a techno-feudalism, or a techno-capitalism 2.0, where the only thing that could kill capitalism is capitalism itself. It out-capitaled itself, and now capitalism is being absorbed by this newer techno-feudalism, which is concentrating the wealth into smaller and smaller amounts of hands, and markets are being decided not by man but by machine. If they haven't, been already, it's been escalated to a point beyond all recognition. But that's just one path that humanity seems to be leaning towards, and there are many others. There's plenty of people out there doing good work to put the environment first, like she brought up in this little introduction here, the third nature, first, second, and third nature, how we can incorporate all of these into an ecosystem and a civilization where everything can thrive despite pitfalls. So it's definitely a very broad inquiry into the capitalist machine. But again, its strength lies in its ability to connect different ideas. It's making the parallels between ecology and economy and culture, and then weaving it all into a very coherent narrative that's easily digestible. Very cool, very well written. Can't recommend it enough. It's very thought-provoking, and she's really got a unique perspective on global capitalism and the possibilities of new ways of living in the wake of all these, disasters where, a lot of these species of birds, insects, fungi, plants are slowly disappearing. Well, not slowly, accelerated. It used to be slow, and now it's accelerating. So, you can get into an argument all day about the Earth being 4 billion years old, and it goes through massive cycles of heating and cooling, and humans have very little effect on that process and whatnot. Even if you strongly believe that, the data just proves that there's more efficient ways to grow as a species without having to step on all the other ones to make sure that the human race continues to grow and for the next generation. We don't want to destroy all of the host, basically. We don't want to destroy the Earth in our pursuit of hedonistic materialism, which is very much an element in this book. If we can kind of shed some of those older materialistic ideals, and specifically, this isn't an anti-Christian statement. It's just the Christian ideal that man is superior to nature. I think that's a fundamental flaw in our thinking for the past couple thousand years and how we've structured our civilization in that. She also weaves quite a bit of that in there as well. There is a perfect balance in between all that. And yeah. So that's all I have to say about that. I just wanted to, bring in a couple of news articles here to talk about. Again, I thought this was interesting. Canada's record-breaking 2023 wildfires released nearly 4 times more carbon than total global aviation. So that's kind of scary. When you look at a little graph like this doesn't look too crazy, but it is significant, and a lot of these fires are preventable. There's natural wildfires that occur, but a lot of these that have been happening and accelerating as the planet super warms up are not normal. So, as you can see here from this one, yeah, not good. Massive spike. And this is the feedback loop that's scary, because it just keeps going and going and going, There's a large fire that burns massive area. All those carbon emissions are injected and fuel the hotter conditions. The hotter, drier conditions dry out the forest further. Larger areas burn as the season gets longer and fires are more frequent, and it just keeps it going. It's going to continue to increase. There's ways to stop it, guys. We got to slow down. We got to hit the brakes on materialistic consumption and building these concrete jungles that require massive, not just massive amounts of exploitation of the planet, but of other human beings. There's better ways to organize our society, guys. Yeah, and this is what's really scary. The reality is that the lines between natural and anthropogenic fires are blurring. Research shows that roughly half of all fires in Canada are directly started by people. And on average, they account for about 20% of the area burned each year. Furthermore, human-driven climate change is making fire seasons longer, which is really the big thing here. Making fire seasons longer. I don't know about you guys, but here in Chicagoland, it certainly seems like for the past decade, the summer season is longer, or at least the tail end of spring and the beginning of fall are warmer than usual. At least that's my observation. But I mean, that's everywhere on the planet. It's proven by data here. As we go to the next article, I thought this was crazy. Antarctic temperatures rise 10 C above average in near record heat wave. I don't know if you guys read anything about this, but this is insane. The entire Antarctic shelf is warmer than it is supposed to be by large margins. Antarctica as a whole has warmed along with the whole world past 50 years. And for that matter, 150 years, the heat wave starting from a more elevated baseline. And so this is a huge portion of our planet here that's all ice. And what happens when that melts and sea levels rise, it's not good. And there's all kind of the poles and are also play into this as well. We're creating a perfect little storm here for a large event, like the shifting of the poles, or it could be quite a bit. We're setting the table for the Earth to do what it does naturally, but at an accelerated rate. And we are smart enough now to recognize those patterns, and we can get off of the insane train sooner rather than later, especially all this hype in the market, all the Mag 7 and all these big tech companies, and the amount of power that goes into using these GPUs and their applications are just, I mean, it is kind of troubling. But again, we don't want to be negative. We want to find ways to thrive, like the matsutake, amongst these bad decisions being made. So despite with all the leaps in technologies, there's still some good to come out of it. I thought this was a fantastic article here. This is from Yale. They want to start the Internet of Animals. Now, some people think that this is absolutely awful. If you're a scientist, you kind of are always looking for new data. So that's what's going on here. Scientists study migrations, endangered species, and global change. Are planting tracking devices on thousands of animals that will be monitored by a satellite-based system set to launch next year. If successful, the project could help illuminate the planet's non-human worlds. And I think we need to learn more about the non-human element of our planet. And we need to really get back into studying that and merging back into perfect balance with the planet, because we are in a bit of trouble here. It's an Icarus project. They're sending the satellite up in 2025, and yeah, it's going to happen. In 2018, after years of working with designers, engineers, and government officials from multiple countries and continents, Wilkelski's team saw its Icarus receiver launch aboard a Suez rocket from Kazakhstan to the International Space Station, where Russian cosmonauts attached to the other side of the orbiting lab. So pretty crazy. It did end up failing, but they ended up doing a redesign here, and they're going to get started again. But it's going to be very important for tech, tracking the body temperatures of these animals and plants, and air temperature, air pressure, wind speed, all this kind of stuff that we need more data on. So there's no reason to get ultimately pessimistic. We can use some of what seems to be these evil creations for good. Again, it's all perception versus reality anyway. So here's a cool little picture from our book here. I'm just going to go ahead and read the last little epilogue. She calls her last chapter the anti-ending. But the epilogue is called Spore Trail, The Further Adventures of a Mushroom. One of the strangest projects of privatization and commodification in the early 21st century has been the movement to commoditize scholarship. And this is what's dangerous, guys. We're making the study of this kind of stuff too difficult to attain for the average person. This kind of stuff should be way more accessible. That's why it's great to read books like this and kind of do a little bit of your own investigations. Two versions have been surprisingly powerful. In Europe, administrators demand assessment exercises that reduce the work of scholars to a sum total for a life of intellectual exchange. In the United States, scholars are asked to become entrepreneurs, producing ourselves as brands and seeking our stardom from the very first days of our studies. When we know nothing, both projects seem to be bizarre to me and suffocating. By privatizing what is necessarily collaborative work, these projects aim to strangle the life out of scholarship. Anyone who cares about ideas is forced, then, to create scenes that exceed or escape professionalization. That is, the surveillance techniques of privatization. This means designing research that requires playgroups and collaborative clusters, not congeries of individuals cultivating costs and benefits, but rather scholarship emerges through its collaborations. Thinking through mushrooms, once again, can help. What if we imagined the intellectual life as a peasant woodland? A source of many useful products emerging in its unintentional design. The image calls up its opposites. In assessment exercises, intellectual life is a plantation. In scholarly entrepreneurship, intellectual life is pure theft, the private appropriation of communal products. Neither is appealing. Consider instead the pleasures of the woodland. There are many useful products there, from berries and mushrooms to firewood, wild vegetables, medicinal herbs, and even timber. A forager can choose what to gather and make use of the woodland's patches of unexpected bounty. But the woodland requires continuing work, not to make it a garden, but rather to keep it open and available for an array of species. Yeah, human grazing and fire maintain this architecture. Other species gather to make it their own. For intellectual work, this seems just right. Work in common creates possibilities of particular feats in individual scholarship. To encourage the unknown potential of scholarly advances, like the unexpected bounty of a nest of mushrooms, requires sustaining the common work of the intellectual woodland. In this spirit, the Matsutake World's Research Group, the group that made the Matsutake research possible, has tried to build the playful collaborations into our individual and collective work. This has not been simple. Pressures to privatize worm their way into every scholar's life. The tempo of collaboration is necessarily sporadic. But we have burned our common intellectual woodland flourishes. This means, too, that the intellectual equivalents of the forest products have become available to each of us as gatherers. This book is just one harvest of those products. It is not the last. A woodland draws us again and again to its shifting treasures. If there is one mushroom, might there yet be more? The book opens a series of forays to our Matsutake woodland. There will be more. To China, to trade commerce, to Japan, to follow cosmopolitan science. Consider the further adventures in these companion volumes. In China, exuberance about the global trade has transformed even the most remote villages, creating a rural China with transnational trade at its heart. Matsutake is the ideal vehicle to follow this development. Michael Hathaway's emerging Matsutake world traces the makings of distinctive paths for global commerce in Yunnan. The book explores conflicting transnational pressures of conservation and commerce, as seen, for example, in the too-hard-to-explain presence of pesticides on Chinese mushrooms, showing how particular places, including Matsutake forests, develop within global connections. One surprising finding is the importance of ethnic entrepreneurship in both Tibetan and Yi areas. pickers and village-based dealers work with ethnic circuits. Hathaway examines both the cosmopolitan character and the traditionalist preoccupations of the new ethnic aspirations promoted by the matsutake. Opening science and knowledge more generally as to cosmopolitan history is an urgent task for scholars. Matsutake science in Japan turns out to be the ideal site for understanding the intersections between science and the vernacular knowledge. On the one hand, the international and local expertise. On the other hand, Shinto Satukaksa, the charisma of wild mushroom, delves into such intersections to show how Japanese science is already cosmopolitan and vernacular. She develops a concept of translation in which all knowledge is based in translation, rather than the immaculate Japanese knowledge of both Orientalist and nationalist imaginations. Matsutake science is translation all the way down. Her work moves beyond familiar Western epistemologies and ontologies to explore unexpected forms of personhood and thingness without the poorly differentiated human-non-human world Matsutake shows us. What kind of book is this that refers to end? Like the Matsutake forests, each gathering sponsors others in unexpected bounty. None of this world would be possible without transgressing against the commodification of scholarship. Woodlands, too, offend the plantation and strip the miner, but it's hard to make woodlands fully disappear. Intellectual woodlands, too. Ideas are born in common, play still beckon. In The Carrier Bag, Theory of Fiction, Ursula K. Le Guin argues that stories of hunting and killing have allowed readers to imagine the individual heroism is the point of a story. Instead, she proposes that storytelling might pick up diverse things of meaning and value and gather them together. Like a forager rather than a hunter waiting for the big kill. In this kind of storytelling, stories should never end, but rather lead to further stories. In the intellectual woodlands, I have been trying to encourage adventurers to lead more adventures and treasures to lead to further treasures. When gathering mushrooms, one is not enough. Finding the first encouraged me to find more. But Le Guin says it with so much more humor and spirit. So I give her the last word. Go on, I say, wandering off towards the wild oats with ooh, ooh in the sling and a little carrying the basket. You just go on telling how the mammoth fell on Boob and how Cain fell on Abel and how the bomb fell on Nagasaki and how the burning jelly fell on the villagers and how the missiles will fall on the evil empire and all the other steps in the ascent of man. If it is a human thing to do to put something you want because it's useful, edible, or beautiful into a bag or a basket or a bit of rolled bark or leaf or a net woven with your own hair or what have you, then take it home with you, home being another larger kind of pouch or bag, a container for people. And then later you take it out and eat it or share it or store it for the winter in a solider container or put it in the medicine bundle or shrine at the museum or holy place, the area that contains what is sacred. And then the next day, you'll probably do much the same again. If to do that is human, if that's what it takes, then I am human. I'm a human being, after all. Fully, freely, gladly, for the first time. Check it out, guys. The mushroom at the end of the world. The possibility of life in capitalist ruins. It's surely possible. Get out there and live that green revolution, y'all. I hope you are having a wonderful summer. Enjoy. It's harvesting time. The plants are fruiting. The air is sweet. It's humid. It's hot, but it's beautiful. Be kind to one another, and most importantly, let's come together and be kinder to the planet. Mother Earth could use it. She could use a break from the incessant nibbling of the humans. So, thanks so much for watching, guys. I appreciate you. See you next time.